Right. How's it, everybody? Oh, struggling with the technology so early in the day. Okay, so this is a little bit of a silly one, a light-hearted one. So I was listening to this lady on Instagram. I think she's called the Hallelujah Woman, and she's going on about how coffee stands for Christ offers forgiveness for everyone, everywhere. Coffee, right? And most people who know me, or everybody who knows me, I think, knows I love coffee. Okay. Um, and I don't know how the following statement is going to be received. However, I'm going to say either I've got the hooks into coffee, it's got the hooks so deeply into me that I tried to go on a coffee fast. It lasted 36 hours. I lie, 18 hours. I didn't last, guys. It was hours long. I was just like, no, God, Jesus, this is not working. Let's do something else. So much so, I was actually able to do instead a 40-day chocolate fast. And for those who know me, that is incredible. Incredibly like impossible, but no. Coffee, no. Um, However, back to Hallelujah Ladies coffee thing. I had an epiphany, guys. So I love my coffee, and during my travels, I made friends with this gentleman who down the road, he got me a mocha pot as a gift. You know, he just says, you know what? I don't know what made him realize that my level of loving coffee, because we didn't travel so much together. We talked about a lot of stuff, but anyhow, that's besides the point. But anyway, he offered me this mocha pot. And I remembered once I used to work for this couple, and they made coffee with the mocha pot, and I was blown away. And I was like, what the heck? 15 years fast forward, and I've got my own mocha pot. Now, this is where the epiphany happens. So I hear Hallelujah Woman, right? And December, my cousin bought me another mocha pot, but this time, this one, it is my favorite color. It came with these glass tumblers, and it just sang to me, you know. And if you don't know the mocha pot, it's basically just putting your water in the pot thing, and then your ground coffee into the filter thing, and then it boils, and then you get coffee out of it, you know. The Checkers one says espresso. They say the thing's an espresso make. I'm like, okay, so I'm having espressos, like, okay. Bottom line, coffee. So the epiphany runs like this. Back in the day, we grew up on all kinds of beverages as kids, you know, from Kool-Aid to water to Oros. To those who don't know, it is an incredibly popular drink in South Africa that you dilute with water. And please don't drink it without diluting. I've heard people who tested it who are not South Africans and say, oh my goodness, this is so sweet. You're crazy. You're supposed to dilute that thing. Otherwise, it'll rot your teeth instantly. And there was Oros. We used to mix kambelele, which is, I think other people call it starch water, mixing sugar with water, you know. And the other one that was a constant was tea. And us kids would do awful things with the tea, like mixing it with bread and doing terrible things to the poor tea. But down the line, I got introduced to coffee, I think through my dad, because I always had to make him coffee. And I used to love the smell of this coffee because we never bought that powdered coffee creamer thing. We always had milk. So the milk and sugar, and you know, it all smelled nice. And I started liking coffee. And back then we never had that thing of, no, you're too young for coffee, blah, 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 blah. So we had coffee. And then my coffee journey then goes to trashy romance novels. The hero always drank his coffee black. I don't know why I thought I'm a hero. I don't know why I aligned myself with these characters. But anyhow, I aligned myself with this particular characters and decided that I would drink coffee black. The hero always drank black coffee, and the stronger the better, and all those kind of analogies of strong coffee, so I started drinking coffee black, except back in the day, and it's still available now, we had the freeze-dried coffee, and there is one called Recoffee, which I loved also because it reminded me of my dad. And even though him and I were like oil and water, but nonetheless, this was my go-to drink, I don't know, it made me feel closer to my dad, I guess. And I realized as I was drinking, and I used to drink lots of that stuff, boy, I used to drink lots and lots of that stuff. Like, I didn't use a teaspoon like everybody else did. I used a spoon, and I would have 3 spoons of coffee in an ordinary size mug 5 times a day. It's a wonder I didn't have a heart attack, And then I realized down the line that it's not coffee, it's chicory. And the basic understanding, chicory is a root, coffee is the bean. I was not having any of the beans, I was having the root. And the epiphany, part of the epiphany here is I was digging at the ground level instead of going higher, the plant, which would be the bean. They're not on the same plant, by the way. And that's the epiphany. I'm coming to somewhere. I'm getting somewhere with all of this. Okay, please bear with me. please bear with me. This epiphany is, I feel, important in the respect that it's part of my journey with Christ, so keep that in mind, okay? It's not just about the coffee. So then with time I ditched Recoffee because indeed I started having palpitations and getting dizzy, and I would go for days not sleeping and and getting hallucinations. I used to hallucinate, and it happened at the worst time, which was my final year at Technicon, and with my final fashion design show. Yeah, it was a disaster. It was an absolute dumpster truck bonfire. So moving on to better things, then discovered Nescafe. I don't remember how Nescafe came into the scene. However, my earliest memory of Nescafe was my aunt, my fancy aunt, the one who traveled the world, who ate different things. She was the one who introduced us to awful things like, what is that nasty vegetable that looks like cabbages? Little cabbages, that nasty vegetable. Drop it in the comments. I can't remember what it's called. That nasty little vegetable that looks like cabbage. It's small like this. And the first person to introduce us to mushrooms and all of that. And she was the first person I saw a bottle of Nescafe at. And as a child, not interested. As a teenager, still not interested. And besides, she moved, so moot point. And then I think I discovered Nescafe in my early 20s at my pastor's house. Possibly. No, my friend's house. Anyhow, I discovered Nescafe, freeze-dried instant coffee. And I decided, okay, no, we are done with Recoffee. This is the, this is the shiz. Okay, so then I'm on to, in my coffee journey, I'm up another tier. I've ditched the chicory. Well, I've ditched the childhood nonsense that we used to have as kids. Ditched the tea. Gone to Recoffee, which is chicory. Ditched chicory. I'm on to Nescafe, so my nose is slightly... Okay, so the snob is now starting to... The snoot is starting to enter the yard. Anyhow, then my cousin, I think it was, and her husband, they introduced me to Jacobs, which was now top tier instant coffee. And I was loving Jacobs. I could not go anywhere without Jacobs. Whenever I visited, I brought my own because I could never trust the natives, the locals, to have coffee, because then, if it wasn't like you'd go to somebody's house and they would offer Frisco. That's like the leavings of all unwanted coffee. That's what Frisco is. It's dust. And if you've lived in a place like Mafikeng where dust is just everywhere, I don't think the dust in the Sahara is as fine. It is just awful. It's dust. So it's not coffee. Do not offer coffee drinkers Frisco, okay? So anyhow, I got introduced to the Shizners, Jacobs, and I traveled with this. I had a little travel bottle. If I didn't bring the whole big old 750 gram bottle, travel everywhere with this thing. And I was convinced for years and years and years, this is the coffee. I'm drinking real coffee. Even though every time I get so excited when I went out, every time I looked at the menu, I would first look at the coffee. And then I would look at whatever else is on offer. But I checked, do they have coffee? What is their coffee? Which brand is their coffee? Stuff like that, real snooty-ish. But then came in the mocha pot, and I had 1 cup of this coffee with the mocha pot. And that was me, spoiled forever, cannot do freeze-dried coffee anymore. Hitting the clouds, I have arrived. I am walking 3 feet off the ground. So, back then to the Epiphany and the walk with Jesus. It occurs to me that this is very much how we can be when we are first introduced to Christ. I'm not going to say Christianity, Christ, because Christianity involves too much, and Christ is Christ. He's central, he's everything. Everything is because of Christ. And we can be the people on Frisco or Recoffee with Christ. And I'm not saying this in the negative connotation of, your highfalutin Christianese that is snobby and excluding and crazy like what we are seeing happening in America, in American politics. I'm talking in terms of growth. Yes, it's just coffee. But where I am now, I've come to a place where now coffee for me is the filter ground coffee from the bean. It's not freeze-dried. And it struck me this hard enough to make a video because you have your somewhere in the Second Testament, one of Paul's letters, I think to the Corinthians, where he's talking about growing from glory to glory, in our walk with Christ. And I think it's natural. We need to grow. Babies grow from being babe in arms to crawling, to sitting, crawling, toddling, walking, running, and then through normal stages of man. You've got Shakespeare with the 7 stages of man. It's all progression. And this here one struck me that I'm in a very privileged place, and I'm thankful for where I am, mainly because I didn't bring myself to where I am. I remember, right now I'm studying Grace for All It's Worth, okay? I'm studying the Bible for all it's worth. And since last year, I've been trying to read the Bible from the beginning to the end, like I've done previously. Previously, I would just pick up the Bible and, force feed myself to go through several chapters per day and tick those off. But now I find myself caught on words, on lines, within the Bible. And I find it particularly fascinating that I'm stuck in the first 5 books of the Bible, which are often the dusty, old, seemingly irrelevant, and also a hard part, because that's when the law came in, especially from Exodus, that's when the law came in, and where a lot of us still teach out of and want to live out of, and it's the law, and that's um, stealing from ourselves what grace offers, and grace has, if I can put it in my own understanding, has concluded the work of the law. Because the law cannot make us holy. It is completely holy, but it can't make us holy. The law is perfect, and it's completely 100% perfect, but it can't make us perfect. But grace can. It can do both. It can make us holy. It does make us holy, and it does make us perfect. And when I'm saying perfect, in terms of this growing from glory to glory, I'm flawed as a person. I speak out of turn. I laugh at very bad moments. I find humor in terrible things. Okay, and the drum beat I march to is only in my head, so I don't make sense to a lot of people. My own mother doesn't understand. I've seen the look in her eyes where she looks at me, and you can see the incomprehension and the confusion when she looks at me. And I've seen my dad do the same. And it doesn't bother me. It bothers me that it bothers them. But not so much anymore, because look, we're all adults, we can figure it out. And besides, so she's saved, so she's got Jesus who can help her out with knowing who I am or whatever, if it matters, So to wrap up this coffee analogy and epiphany, I've come to, I guess what I'm saying is that I'm sharing that I've come to a place where I no longer want to water down the word that I'm learning. I no longer want to have the root when I can have the bean. I no longer want to accept being the tail when God is offering me the head, and in terms of his word. And I've come to a place where it's non-negotiable. I mean, right now, to give me, even if it's Jacob's and other freeze-dried, high-quality, freeze-dried instant coffees, non-negotiable. It's okay, I'll have water instead, You don't want to offer me coffee and then I'm making a face. Because I will. Because there's some things I just don't try to even control, So rather than making the face, I would rather just say, no, it's okay, just give me some water or whatever. Don't offer me anything, it's fine. It's not going to kill me. In any case, I came to visit for you, not for your coffee. So, yeah, so my hope is, I don't aspire to being like Paul or one of the 12 disciples, or, I think they first of all, they lived in such a different time. And secondly, I think rather being the best me that Jesus has meant for me to be is the best thing I can do. And thankfully, that is totally doable because of grace. And I hope that we will all pursue this grace that Christ's finished work offers us, because the law, even though perfect, was not a finished work, because man had to keep at it, do good, get good, do bad, get bad. The law was this terrible cycle, I want to say reverently, of unhappiness, whereas grace takes us to places where we can be assured, confident, peaceful within ourselves. That's what grace does. And what the law didn't, because the law is meant to show us up. You know, it's the thing that turns you inside out and exposes all the chacha stuff inside. And we cannot be saved by the law, but we can be saved by Jesus. So I hope this blesses somebody, and I hope you stood around long enough to hear my my coffee trade. So thanks everybody. Thanks again for joining me on another episode of this diary convo. And yeah, let's keep having the conversation, and I'll keep posting. Oh guys, please pray for me so I keep posting. I've hit a kind of a wall. All right, if I keep going blathering on and taking away from the original message. Have a good day, everybody. Peace. Take care.